After a 12-year-old murder victim's grandmother speaks out, his mother and aunt are as well. What they know about the grip of gang violence in Baltimore, and they want you to know it as well. A return to weekly recycling pickup on the table in Baltimore, but not for several months. Why some lawmakers and residents are questioning the city's priorities. And two top officials in Harford County at odds over the school budget. Why the superintendent says a $300 million budget isn't enough.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. We begin with that newly released video from a homicide Sunday night in Northeast Baltimore. Police are sharing this surveillance footage showing the moment a suspect killed a man on camera on Chesley Avenue. You can see a hooded suspect wearing all black, chasing the victim behind a home and then shooting him multiple times. There's an $8,000 reward for information leading to an arrest in the case. Anybody with information should contact Baltimore police.
My grandson was killed like a dog in the street. I would never, ever be able to touch him again and tell him how much I love him. And it's heartbreaking.
We first heard from the grandmother of 12-year-old Jalen Richards last night in a Fox 45 News exclusive. Richards was shot and killed Saturday night, the 9th child killed in Baltimore already this year. Now, Jalen's aunt and mother are sharing their pain. They say they were working on getting Jalen to stop hanging out with the wrong crowd. They spoke to our Mackenzie Frost today.
We spoke with Jalen Richards' mom and aunt, who say they were working with the 12-year-old so that he could stay away from the wrong crowd, noting that he was involved in some criminal activity in the past. The two sisters were afraid to show their faces on camera out of fear of retaliation, but their story is raising some serious questions for leaders, and we're pressing them for answers. The sounds of grief.
My son's life ran out, like I said, to the streets of Baltimore City.
From a mother whose 12-year-old son was gunned down in South Baltimore, and an aunt who wants to share more about Jalen Richards. Richards was on house arrest, the family says, for theft charges, and they say it's all because the child was hanging out with an older crowd.
Big people that don't want to take charges and say you're a 12-year-old that you will come home. They still was dragging my baby to the streets because he was a minor.
These feelings echoed by Richards' grandmother.
Carjacking. They had him carjacking. These older children, Jalen don't know how to drive. He was just hanging along for the ride. And them older people had already got a catch on him.
It's not just the family of Jalen's Richards. Patty Hawkins moved her son out of Baltimore because she says he was facing pressures from adults in the city.
It's easier to have children sell drugs for you than you to get a charge yourself to sell drugs. For me to know that my son was struggling with keeping himself out of a gang and didn't know how to communicate with me, that really hurt.
After a law passed during the 2022 General Assembly session, kids 13 and under shielded from facing charges. Now, families say their kids are being recruited by adults to commit crimes. So we sent questions to Mayor Brandon Scott's office asking, is there a trend of adults using children to commit their crimes in the city? If so, should lawmakers at the state level revisit laws shielding some of these kids from charges? What's your message to these families? Mayor Brandon Scott ignoring the questions. We also sent a few to Baltimore Police Commissioner Michael Harrison asking, does Baltimore City have a gang problem? If so, what do you say to Baltimoreans who are concerned about this growing gang activity? Again, no answers. While leaders stay silent about possible policy changes, families are grieving.
The parents is planning funerals for their kids, not planning birthday parties.
And demanding police go after the people getting kids involved in this life of crime.
These older kids out here that he was dealing with got my grandson killed. They took advantage of him.
Before the streets of Baltimore claim another young life.
The street swallowed my grandson. Grown folks took advantage of my grandson, and he's gone.
We pressed lawmakers in Annapolis about what policy changes could be made to address this problem earlier this week. But again, no one responded. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Baltimore police meeting with the city state's attorney's office today. It is part of a monthly collaboration effort between the groups, focusing on how to address public safety in the city.
A grand jury has indicted 2 Baltimore police officers in separate incidents. Officer Kevin Hilton is accused of second-degree assault. The report claims Hilton shot at a man who has a disabled leg while the man was already handcuffed. Officer Unique Shepard faces charges of tampering with evidence and a handgun charge after another officer found drugs and a loaded gun in the back of her car. Mary?
Okay, thank you. School budget season in Harford County is pitting the county executive and the superintendent against each other. Today, a rebuttal to Harford County Executive Bob Castley's proposed budget after he outlined it on Fox 45 Morning News. The proposal comes with no tax increases and roughly $305 million for Harford County public schools. But that's more than $19 million less than the previous administration gave schools in their last budget year.
We've more than fully funded the state, our educational budget over the last several years, and that's enabled our Board of Education to accumulate a fund balance of over $93 million.
The costs are increasing greatly, and but this county is failing to fund education at the level that it needs to.
The Harford County Council will be the one to consider this budget proposal. Work sessions and public hearings are expected next month. After more than a year of rolled back service, Mayor Scott is promising to return to weekly recycling pickup in Baltimore, but not until 2024. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has more on the extended deadline and the pushback across the city.
Yeah, during Monday night's State of the City address, Mayor Brandon Scott said the city would finally be returning to weekly recycling, but the catch is not until next year. This despite residents demanding that change be made now.
As piles of plastic and cardboard boxes continue overflowing on curbs across the city, after a year of rolled back services, Mayor Brandon Scott now promising to restore weekly recycling.
Baltimore, you have my word.
But his time frame for doing so?
That we will return to weekly recycling by Q1 of 2024.
Potentially another full year away. Among the city residents calling the mayor's extended deadline crushing.
Recycling should be on track today.
Desmond Stinney, the man behind the lawsuit, demanding the city follow its own charter, which requires weekly recycling collections.
If we're not going to get the services that we're paying for, then perhaps we should, think about holding our property taxes, until 2025 and take a couple of years off from paying those.
To push the can further down the road is not what the citizens were looking to hear.
Councilman Yitzi Schleifer agrees, saying instead of prioritizing basic city services, city funding is being misplaced. Earlier this year, the mayor's Clean Court program paying $15 million for community groups to pick up trash. And in the proposed budget for next year, DPW requesting a nearly 40% increase for upper-level management, some of whom already bring home six-figure salaries, while the overall waste removal and recycling budget only requesting a 7% increase.
Instead of seeing the DPW executives' salaries ballooning, what I'd like to see is that same 40% increase go to the workers at DPW, the ones who are actually doing the work.
Yitzi arguing the mayor's $10,000 recruitment and retention bonuses isn't enough to encourage overworked and underpaid city employees, just like the mayor's 2024 deadline isn't enough to satisfy frustrated city residents.
The excuses certainly have not made sense for a very long time.
They're tone deaf as to what the citizens want and deserve.
And as for Stinney's lawsuit, he says earlier this week the city filed a motion to dismiss the case. Now the next step is for a hearing to be set so that both sides can argue their positions in front of a judge. Stinney says that will likely happen in the next couple of weeks. Reporting in Baltimore, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Well, topping our trending stories now, BWI is unveiling its first set of renovated bathrooms as part of a $55 million project. The new bathrooms feature state-of-the-art stalls with sensors that will alert custodial staff when supplies need to be refilled. 5 total bathroom upgrades are scheduled to be finished by the end of the year. A major facelift coming to the Uplands neighborhood in Baltimore as the city looks to turn 63 acres of old housing into 150 affordable apartments. It is phase 2 of a project designed to reshape the area. State leaders hoping these types of developments can break the stigma surrounding affordable housing.
When we talk about redlining, when you think about urban highway programs, when you think about urban renewal programs, these have been layered investments and layered decisions that have over and over done damage to cities like Baltimore and communities throughout this state. And there's no other way to put it, that those are racist policy decisions of the past that have become cemented over time. And it's going to take our collective and deliberate action to undo those policy decisions.
The revamped neighborhood will also include more than 10,000 square feet of retail space. Well, still ahead, our drone video shows just how much of an Owings Mills Park was reduced to ashes by that wildfire 2 weeks ago.
And it looks like sunshine gives way to moonlit skies into the overnight if you're going to be spending the evening out getting a bite to eat or maybe just doing some grilling on the porch or the back deck. I'm going to let you know when temperatures are going to heat up around here. It could threaten 90. It's in my Weather Authority forecast.
I'm Scott Thuman in Washington, where there's another critical fight about abortion rights, and the political fallout could be significant. I'll explain.
Breaking news right now, a 20-year-old has been arrested in Alabama, joining 2 teens who are already accused in the shooting at a Sweet 16 birthday party over the weekend. 4 were wounded. 4 were killed, 28 others were wounded. We're learning those teens, ages 16 and 17, are facing first-degree murder charges and will be charged as adults. The 20-year-old man faces reckless murder charges. Police say shooters opened fire at the birthday party Saturday night. One of the victims was the birthday girl's older brothers. Police have not released a motive at this time. Well, the man who confessed to killing 4 people, including his parents, then opening fire along a highway in the state of Maine, was recently released from prison. Joseph Eden, charged in the murders late last night, was out of lockup on Friday, picked up his mother, now a victim. The aggravated assault sentence prevented him from legally possessing a gun. At this time, state police are not discussing possible motives. Mary.
Well, millions of people waiting on a critical abortion decision from the U.S. Supreme Court will have to wait a little longer. Tonight's deadline for a decision pushed back to Friday. Chief political correspondent Scott Thuman takes us through the political back and forth in Washington.
Another critical Supreme Court say on abortion in America, with political fallout playing out just across the street.
Republicans have one goal. One goal. They want to control women in every state and every zip code.
The Democrats used it against us, obviously, in the election. Well, we're doing away with abortion.
While in the 2022 midterm elections, Republicans won on the top issue of inflation, the red wave they were expecting never truly materialized, since some say conservative efforts to limit abortion rights also galvanized opponents. Politico reporting abortion hadn't simply awakened Democratic voters, it was actually persuading swing voters, citing internal memos calling it a massive vulnerability for Republicans.
Every time Republicans are talking about abortion, we're losing, right? Because we don't do it well as a party, right? I think the next generation of Republican that's not a top priority for them.
But that hardly means all Republicans are backing off.
I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. We're going to continue to champion the right to life. We're going to continue to champion the interests of women born and unborn.
In Florida, potential presidential candidate and governor Ron DeSantis further restricting when a woman can get an abortion from 15 weeks to now just 6 weeks. Within the party, worries that will only hurt the GOP in 2024. Former President Trump unusually quiet on that latest move, while President Biden tweeted the only way to counter it, elect a Congress who will pass a law restoring Roe v. Wade.
If any Republican thinks that voters have simmered down on the abortion issue, they are wrong. That is going to continue well into the next presidential race.
A fight already well underway. In Washington, Scott Thuman for the National Desk.
We'll take a look at this. One of our Fox 45 drones capturing what's left after that massive brush fire in Owings Mills. 700 acres burned 2 weeks ago, mostly in the Soldiers Delight Natural Environmental Area. You can see from that drone that entire sections of the park are charred. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers is here. And Jonathan, we're continuing to see these dry and really windy conditions out there that can fuel some of these brush fires.
Yeah, Mary, it's the beautiful weather that we've been seeing that can cause those types of scenes. And this is why we have the red flag warnings that were up for yesterday and enhanced fire danger still around for today and potentially even tomorrow. The fuels, in other words, kind of the ground cover, some of the foliage, the leaves, very, very dry on top of some April sunshine, sun angle that really helps to dry things out as well. And some of the breezy conditions, 30, 40 miles an hour in gusts yesterday. Now with the sunshine, winds have calmed down a little, but they're still up. West-northwest at 13, and that humidity is not helping out either. Still only in the teens percentile there. 13-mile-an-hour winds out of the west here in Baltimore right now. Some gusts up to about 15 to 20. And then again, you've got this issue with the humidity that's only at 15% here in Baltimore, as well as at Frederick and also at Chestertown. We'll still see that relatively low humidity and potentially also those extremely dry kind of ground conditions lasting through tomorrow. So That's why I'm thinking we're probably not going to want to be doing any outdoor burning today nor tomorrow. I think things gradually get better as we head through Friday on into the weekend, but that's when temperatures begin to heat up too. Temperatures in the 70s, generally some 60s near the water. Just a great outdoor lunch type of day today. HD radar does show some rain, even some thunderstorms passing through the upper portion of the Midwest. And then here near Omaha, as you get into that more unstable, warmer, more humid air, we've got tornado watches in effect, and then a cold front eventually that's behind all of that. So the nice weather leads to much warmer weather as we get into tomorrow as well as Friday. Then things get more interesting rain-wise around here as the second portion of that system gets here. That's way out west in the Intermountain West as we go through the weekend. And that will lead to a cool down as well eventually. Look at those chilly temperatures up around Salt Lake City as well as Billings, Montana, Seattle 30s, 40s, 50s. We've got a lot of warmth to get through first, though. We're right at the edge of it. 74 here in Baltimore. There are 80s down to our south, and it looks like for tomorrow we get into the 80s as well. So through 10 p.m. tonight, 50s, low 60s. Not going to be the 37 we woke up to this morning. By tomorrow morning, 40s to around 50, maybe some 50s up and down the 95 corridor in the more metropolitan areas and right near the water. By about 8 a.m., we're rising through the 50s. Another good outdoor lunch day for tomorrow. Noontime, well into the 70s. Get outside, enjoy it, and maybe short sleeves and shorts by tomorrow afternoon. As we're in the 80s, most locales could have some 70s right near the water. 48, mostly clear for tonight. Tomorrow, looking good with lots of sun. 84. I've got your exclusive 10-day forecast ahead in just 2 minutes.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Hailstones the size of ping pong balls fell in portions of southern Nebraska Tuesday night. The state is on alert for the possibility of more storms this evening. And a stormy day earlier this week along the southern Oregon coast gives us this great shot of cloud-to-ocean lightning. You can also see the rain falling into the Pacific.
Listen to Off the Radar. New episodes every Tuesday. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.
2 months removed from a devastating train derailment in Ohio, first responders are working to make sure a toxic disaster of that scale doesn't happen again. James Plitcher from our Sinclair sister station in Cincinnati explains.
Norfolk Southern has been training first responders on trains like this for years. But given the recent events in East Palestine, these training sessions have taken on added significance, and that includes Tuesday's session where dozens of area first responders came to learn about how to deal with trains.
The Atlanta-based railroad offered 2 training sessions for firefighters and other first responders at its Simpson train yard in Queensgate.
Any questions on any of these?
Norfolk Southern trainers took them through how to identify different kinds of valves, as well as how to read hazmat placards on the sides of tank cars. Railroad spokesman Connor Spielmaker says first responders get as much information in advance as possible on hazmat materials, including loading train-specific information on an app that can be accessed on the scene of an accident. But lawmakers like Ohio Senators Sherrod Brown and J.D. Vance, and even Governor Mike DeWine, are calling for towns and cities to be better notified ahead of time. Following up, is Norfolk Southern in favor of actually making that law that has to be publicly available and available to the public?
So we're working with first responders and obviously legislators and regulators to learn lessons from East Palestine, and what exactly all is going to come out of that at the end, I can't speak to right now.
Tuesday's session came more than 2 months after a Norfolk Southern train derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, spilling thousands of gallons of toxic chemicals into area streams and forcing a controlled burn-off of other chemicals that sent pollutants into the air. First responders to that scene said they didn't know what the train was carrying at the time or how to fight the fire. Cincinnati Fire Lieutenant John Deal is a 25-year veteran of the department who works on the city's hazmat response team.
The training, first of all, will be very helpful because they're in the process of updating train cars, and so we're getting new education on the newer train cars and the protection that those cars have and how we need to deal with them.
In Cincinnati, I'm James Pilcher.
All right, an exclusive look at the 10-day forecast. 84 degrees for our day on Thursday. We're at 89. That could threaten a record on Friday. PM showers on Saturday, 80, 68. Cool showers early on Sunday, and it looks like we wrap it up with 60s to near 70 early next week. Could turn unsettled by next Friday and Saturday.
Jonathan, thank you. Well, finally tonight, the Maryland Science Olympiad returns this weekend, and some Baltimore City students are getting some local help. Check this out. Students at Johns Hopkins School of Engineering are helping out at Cherry Hill Elementary Middle School. The Science Olympiad is America's largest STEM competition for middle and high schoolers. Cherry Hill has one of 10 qualifying teams in Baltimore, 9 of which were mentored by Johns Hopkins students. Fantastic. And good luck. That's all for Fox 45 News at 6. Family Feud is next. We'll see you back here for the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching and have a great night.